Carter Solomon, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
How are the legs feeling post 10K over the weekend?
Well, the first 5K of the 10K was, it was a slower pace, almost like a threshold, and then we really got going the last 5K. So it wasn't too bad on the legs, but like 5 or 6 days out now, finally feeling recovered. So
Would you consider yourself more of a 10K guy or 5K guy? I feel like you've dabbled in both over the years. Which would you say is your strong suit?
I for sure the 5K. I'm not a super high mileage guy. I don't do 100-mile weeks or anything. We like to do off events at the conference meet, um, and the 10K the year before went well, and then this year I still think it went pretty well. But all eyes are focused on the 5K going towards regionals.
Is that nice having the 10K behind you and now you're like, oh, bread and butter coming up. Hard stuff's behind
Yeah,
me.
people were like, "Are you going to do the 10K at regionals?" I was like, "No, I'm done with that for this season at least." So
I am curious to ask you this question. I've had him on the podcast twice at this point, and knowing him and the team, they'll probably listen to this podcast. So shout out Parker if you're listening. What's it like being in the same conference as Parker Wolf? I know you guys have had some good head-to-head battles. What's your take not being on the 5K in the 5K with him this past weekend? What he did and just how stacked the ACC conference is.
yeah, I think the ACC has made such a crazy jump in the last couple of years. And Parker and I have gone back and forth in a lot of different races in the last 2 years. And this year he's made quite the jump. And as a competitor, it's impressive. But you still want to compete with those guys that are at the top of the ACC. He's definitely made it very difficult, and I've turned towards what we're doing, like what can I do to get better to get to that level. And racing guys like him, and there's other guys in the conference now that are national caliber, top three, top five guys in the country. It creates a great environment going into regionals and nationals. You're getting that great competition experience, and the more experience, the better, in my opinion. So it's definitely difficult racing those guys, but I'm happy to be up in there and chasing guys and trying to beat those guys at the conference meet. So
I asked Parker something similar, and I'll ask you something similar. Do you think a guy like Nico Young can be beat this year? And what's kind of your take on just the state of the NCAA and how fast it's gotten, as well as a guy like Nico with how fast he's running? Like, do you think he's beatable going into the national meet? I'm smiling here too because I'm thinking of last year. Like, it's so funny. Like, Kai Robinson pretty handily won both the 5K and 10K, and like no one's talking about him, even though
yep,
he's running both those events this year. It is just truly astounding how good people have gotten.
it's mind boggling. I think people really started realizing how good the NCAA got when Graham ran 13:03 at that indoor 5K. Um, I think that was like, whoa, this is a legit jump that the NCAA has made. In terms of Nico, anything could happen at those races, and the only thing I could think of is it's hard to peak at multiple times throughout the year. I'm sure whatever system he's got going on in Flagstaff is great. I'm sure he'll be fine, but from at least my own personal experience, it's hard to be fast in April and in June. So that's the only thing I could think of that might deem him beatable. But I mean the way Parker looked this last weekend in the 10K 5K double, I think he's going to be certainly in that conversation.
Speaking of kind of that aspect of peaking in April and in June and being ready to go, and even for a guy like Nico, and maybe even you have a similar mindset, like he's also thinking about USAs. And I know he wants to run the 10K at USAs. So his horizon is so long and he's trying to hit it hard all year. For you, is it hard when taking the more conservative approach where, you're ramping up workouts, you're ramping up mileage, maybe in the months that guys are doing time trials or like in Nico's case in March, running one of the fastest 10Ks in history. Like, how do you balance your own personal journey while also not falling into the trap of comparing yourself to some of your competitors who are hitting it hard year round?
Yeah, I think it's it's easy to get caught up in what other people are doing. And if you're running at the trials and you've got the Olympic A standard, I think you've got a chance of making the team, regardless of how old you are, or where you're at in your career. Um, and for me, I personally don't have a USA mark this year, so I think all things going well, making the NCAA meet, doing the best I can there, and then just all eyes towards cross country and really getting that strong summer base to try to make another jump to that level that these guys are talking um, about with their 5K and 10K times. I think that's just as important. I think experience at USA's is great, and if you're clicking and ripping at the right time, then it's a great opportunity. But I think for guys like myself that need to keep getting better and to keep making those jumps at long summer bases, almost just as important. So,
Talking about cross versus track, which one do you enjoy more?
I I would say cross country, just because the team we have, I think, is super special. I think we all really gear up for cross country and make the most of it, and it's just so much fun when you got 7 guys, 10 guys clicking all at once and racing for each other versus track. It's a little more individualized, but 5K on a track is not as bad as a 10K on the grass. So it's hard to say sometimes.
Especially when you got 2:30 for the K at the national meet.
Yeah, that
Everyone
was
does.
crazy. Yeah.
Bridging the gap between a few subjects here, talking about cross, and also we mentioned Parker Wolf. I do want to talk about a race that you had as number 2022 ACC Cross Country Championships. Probably one of the wildest finishes that I've seen in a hot minute. Take me through your perspective of the race and also being able to look back on not just being ACC champion for the rest of your life, but doing so in such a fun fashion that I have a hard time believing like your kids and grandkids one day won't watch that back and be like, yo, my dad was sick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, going into the race, the goal was top 5. I knew that was a reasonable goal, and it would have been a great day if that was the outcome. And 5K into the race, I felt great. I felt controlled, and with 2K to go, I started pushing the pace a little bit, and I thought I was going to run away with it, but I did not. Parker Wolf caught me, and he started surging with maybe a quarter mile to go, and went down a hill, and he probably had a couple of seconds on me. And at the bottom of the last uphill, I just found another gear. Um, there's a video. So I saw my dad at the bottom of that hill, and we made eye contact. And I don't remember what he said, but he yelled something at me, and it just like flicked the switch inside of me, and I floored it up the hill. And then at the top of the hill, I was shoulder to shoulder with Wolf. And I was like, well, this is just got to give it everything I had the last 50. I think it was a true dogfight. It was crazy finish, and I remember finishing, and I was like, wow, that I couldn't really believe it as soon as it happened. Right, I was like, well, this was beyond what we were expecting. Right, and there's a video I gave him a hug after the race. Like, it felt like a boxing match, just 2 guys going at it and going the distance in a boxing match, and just everything we got at the end. And yeah, it was a pretty cool moment.
I think something super unique about NCAA Cross is the strategy that's involved that maybe even the players and the runners aren't tangibly aware of. Like, I think so much goes into a cross country race, specifically the championship ones, the different tactics and the things that happen subconsciously that like you're not aware of. Like your dad says something and you immediately start flooring it up the hill, right?
Yeah,
But moves like that happen all throughout the race. NCAA meet, as we talked about, going out for 2:30 in the K. Different moves are made within the front pack, within the backpack, the team scores. Like cross country is truly, this is why I think running would be so much more amazing if there was coverage around it, because I think there'd be so much to discuss and so many things within the sport. It does truly feel like a game. What's that kind of aspect, being one of those people within it? How much are you talking about tactics with like Coach Neal going into a race versus you just feel like you are so natural at it after years and years of running that you can respond to moves you can come up with good responses to what other people do within the race.
Yeah, that's a great question because it is all about strategy going into races. And I think we talk strategy a lot going into big cross country races, specifically where we think we can finish individually in each race and where that would lead to a team score. And then towards the end of races, I think that's where instincts kick in. When guys make moves, you've competed against before, um, and just kind of turn your brain off and matching those moves as best you can. So I think it's a little bit of both. Um, and Coach Neal's great about talking about expectations, and you know he's he's always believing in what we're capable of doing, and just having that side of the coaching makes it easier when races get tough, and the race plan falls apart a little bit. Um, just kind of knowing that you've got your guys with you, and you've got a coach that believes in you. It makes the last half of cross country races worth fighting for.
I'm going to humble you for a second and make you feel slow because we've been talking about all your accomplishments. I was
Yeah,
coming across your Notre Dame profile, and I do remember in my years growing up as a fan within the sport, your years at Foot Locker were like when I was really starting to become a fan. So I remember you in high school. Unless Notre Dame's, these are still fast times, but it's just funny to put in perspective. So it said you hold your school record in the 5K and 3,200. You ran 14:42 in the 5K and 9:08 in the 3,200. Again, as someone who's never even touched 908, I have no platform to call that slow. But is it funny seeing a race like Arcadia this year where like what was it, like 65 guys broke 9 in the same meet and
yeah.
think, man, I'm glad I came up in the sport where I did because I may have not been recruited to Notre Dame if I was in 2024. Now,
I
granted, I guarantee you would have been with that pack of runners, like with the shoes, with training, like so. In no way is that discrediting what you did, but it's funny to see the gen. I mean, 2024 is just ridiculous.
it's ridiculous. We talk about races like that amongst our team. Like these high schoolers are just they're on another level. And I asked Coach Neal that I'm like, would you still recruit me if I had the same high school accolades? And he was like, he paused for a minute and was like, yeah, I think so, but my 2 mile time does not match what I did in cross country in high school. Um, so I am thankful that I wasn't recruited to Notre Dame by Coach Neal. Coach Carlson was the coach at the time, and he was such a big believer in cross country finishes, and that's what he was sold on. And he told me, I remember in high school, he's like, I don't care what you run on the track, your cross country performances, like that's what we're gonna try to recruit you for. Um, but yeah, that time I ran 908 back in high school. Um, I don't even know, it'd probably be top 500 in high school now. I don't. It's just it's insane how fast they are.
As a guy who was super good at cross country in high school and kind of had a mindset geared towards it, how do you think that kind of played into the mindset and the culture at Notre Dame, which seems very much one of cross country excellence? Even with someone like Olivia, when I talked to her, like best steeplechaser in the country, hands down, incredible indoor track, outdoor track, you name the distance, you name the event, she'll crush it. But she talks about her love for cross country and like how that's her favorite thing. So it does seem like a culture thing at Notre Dame, where Notre Dame is a cross country school. How did that kind of play into you in the recruiting process with multiple different schools and Notre Dame standing out in that aspect?
Well, I think Notre Dame was the really the only true cross country focused program. We've got track runners and we have a track team, but Carlson was so adamant about our cross country culture when I was being recruited. The other schools I visited didn't sell cross country and that close, tight knit team culture that Notre Dame had, and that sold me. It was my last visit of my high school college visits, and I just fell in love immediately. I fell in love with the guys. All the guys were so focused on being part of that cross country team. Um, it sold me, and I was really eager to join and be a part of something, a culture just like that. So
I have to ask you, with the guys coming into Notre Dame and you having this final year, what's your take on the class of 2024 coming into Notre Dame? I think hands down, best recruiting class in the country. Also, a bunch of goofballs with guys like Cameron Todd. Any funny recruiting stories with that class?
There, next year is going to be it's going to be so much fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's just going to be chaos. Like we've got like CJ Singleton. That class of guys, there's like 8 guys in that class. They're all goofy, high energy guys. Then this incoming class is the same type of like 8 guys. They're all full of energy, ready to just blow the doors off. And we're we're gonna have our hands full because there's only 3 of us seniors that have been here for 4 or 5 years, and there's gonna be well at least 16 of them. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, but oh, we're getting ready for it. We're getting ready for it. I'm super excited though.
What's your take when you see a guy like Drew Griffith run 8:34 as a senior in high school and think, man, I'm going to be doing workouts with that kid?
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I I listened to the podcast you did with CJ, and he said that he knew from a young age Drew was just going to be a really good runner. Just the way he showed up to practice and was able to do workouts and stuff. I think it'll be. I'm happy that I get at least 1 year with him. I think he's going to be a great addition for the team. Um, but I'm excited for all the other guys as well because I think Coach Neal's training is very developmental, and I think a lot of those guys are very talented, and we get them ingrained in our system and give them a year or two of collegiate training. That they're going to be national caliber guys as well. But 8:34 in high school is a little bit crazy.
Do you think any of the guys coming in this year? I guess Drew is probably the only one that's even remotely close to it. You hold a PR of 3:57 in the mile. Drew is running Festival of Miles, which is where 4 guys broke 4 last year. In any reality, do you think Drew Griffith beats your mile PR?
This year in high school,
Yeah. What
probably.
PR of yours do you think he could come close to? Any?
Well, for sure the 3K. I think we have the same 3K 2 mile time.
Oh, okay.
Um, uh, or close. I don't really know what the conversion is, but um, I wouldn't be shocked if he ran 3:56 at one of these races.
Really?
I mean, these high schoolers are just doing different things. I think there might even be 2 guys in that incoming class that break 4. I don't like the way they talk and the workouts that they're doing. I think they're capable of it if it's given the right race. So, yeah, that would be pretty crazy though if he ran 3:56 something.
The funniest was when I had him on the podcast last. We were just briefly talking about upcoming races, and he's like, "Yeah, we have our home meet tomorrow. Like 96 teams come. It's a big deal. It's at Butler." I'm like, "Dang, man! Like, what are you looking to do? Like home meet, probably have zero competition." He's like, "Yeah, not too much competition, but I'm gonna run the mile." And so I asked, I was like, "Oh, is that the type of situation where you just try to win it in front of home crowd?" He's like, "No, I'm gonna go try to break 4 on the home track. I think it'd be cool." And he goes out there and he runs like 4 flat and change on his
It's just
home
crazy.
high school track with no competition. And I'm like, the ability to run 30 points, like, or I guess like 30 flat at that rate is just absolutely remarkable. And so I don't think he'll run 3:57. No hate, Drew, if you're listening, but I think sub 4 in the bag for sure. We'll see. It'll be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Let's talk about the transition. I'm curious to hear about like between coaches. So Carlson recruited you, and now you're being coached by Coach Neal. What's that been like? What's Coach Neal's influence on you been like, and how have both kind of made you into the athlete you are today?
yeah. I mean, in the 4 years I've spent at Notre Dame, I've had 2 years with 2 very successful coaches. And I'll talk about Carlson firstly. I think, well, first of all, he recruited me to Notre Dame. He recruited other great athletes in Notre Dame, and he's had success at Notre Dame. And my first year here, I was a low mileage guy in high school, transitioning to higher mileage in college. Was rough at the start, went through injuries and stuff, and he was always supportive and would tell me things like, we said to get you healthy. I still think you can be, one of the best guys in the ACC and up there, running well at national meets and stuff. We just got to get you healthy. And it was patient. He never gave me crazy mileage weeks, and it was a good system. And I enjoyed the healthy year, my sophomore year I had training with Carlson, and then he left to go to Tennessee, and we hired Chris Neal, and the transition from Carlson to Neal, it was it was smooth. The summer was hard in the summer because we had that huge incoming class of freshmen, and we didn't really have set training in stone, so it was kind of a hodgepodge. I was trying to help guys with training and stuff, but then we hired Chris Neal, and him and I clicked right away. It felt like he'd been coaching me for years. That first fall that he was here, and all the guys in the locker room clicked with him as well. It super smooth transition, and we welcomed him with open arms, and he welcomed us and was super excited to be here and work with us. He's a real grinder. He's always working, finding something to do, and I think he's just a great coach. He's coached great athletes in the past. He's done well with athletes we have here. So I'm super excited I get to work with him again for another year.
What have been some of the biggest lessons you've learned in your time at Notre Dame about the sport of running and about high level distance running?
The first thing I've learned is how unforgiving it can be. Um, just when you think things are clicking and going well, you could have a bad race, you could get injured, you could get sick, right? It's very unpredictable and very unforgiving, especially at that super top level. If you're not your 100%, the NCAA, the ACC guys in your team they'll expose that. Not necessarily intentionally, but you have to be on top of your game in order to compete at those levels. And that's the first thing I learned. But the other things I've learned, just how disciplined you have to be successful in the sport, especially with an academic school that Notre Dame is. Time management skills, stuff like that. That shouldn't be taken lightly. It was very tough finishing that degree, but um, worth it in the end. I've learned so much about myself and how to just manage myself in time through the last 4 years.
Yeah, going deeper into that, can you take me into the balance of being at a prestigious institution while also being at one of the most athletically excellent schools in the country? Many top runners have one but don't have the other, um, which is like, yeah, I would put like Notre Dame and Stanford in a category of their own, like best runners in the country, best academic institutions, Ivy Leagues, they have great academics, running's lacking, and then like Power
Yeah.
Fives, absolutely incredible athletics, not academics. It's a joke.
Yeah.
I'll say that
So,
unbiased.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I am too, right? So my whole life, I knew I wanted to study engineering, and I remember back in high school, I was like, Dad, I want to do engineering in school or in college, and he was like, that's going to be very difficult to balance with running. And he was not wrong. He was not wrong. I remember that first week of freshman year college, I think I had 5 or 6 classes, and they all had problem sets due by the end of the second week, and I was like, oh, this is serious. Like, we're hitting the ground running, we're getting after it in the classroom. And I've spent 10+ hour days like sophomore and junior year just with class and school and homework, just day after day after day. Um, and would I do a different degree if I could have, like just like a marketing degree or something, and really focus on running? Maybe. Now that I'm done with my engineering degree, it's like, no, I'm glad I stuck with it, but it was definitely tough. It it was a hard balance, but it was a balance worth fighting for. Like, I knew I was getting a good education, and I knew that if I could just stay healthy and keep running, that I was hoping I would at least find success in track and cross country. So
How much did the academic excellence of Notre Dame attract you to that school? And how much did that play a factor in you joining them?
It it certainly played a factor. I mean, I was looking at other great engineering schools in the Midwest, so I knew I wanted to maximize my education and use running to get into a school that maybe I wouldn't have normally got into. That was definitely on my mind when I was looking at colleges. And Notre Dame was the perfect mesh between academics and that team culture, like we talked about earlier. So I felt at home right away, and yeah,
A lot of people listen to the podcast that are high level runners, and I constantly get questions about recruiting and whatnot. And I don't feel like I'm in a place to answer those. So I'll, from time to time ask the guest about it. This might be a hot take, but do you think more high level athletes who can go to D1 schools should utilize being fast to get into schools they probably couldn't get into on their own? What I mean by that is, like, I think, again, this is maybe a scolding hot take, but I think a lot of kids like look very short minded and look at the school that is going to be best for them athletically just for those 4 years without realizing that the odds of them going pro in that sport, and I'm talking about all sports, not just running,
yeah,
is extremely low. And that I live in Columbus, so I'll use Ohio State as an example. Like a degree from Ohio State versus a degree from Notre Dame, and the job opportunities that come from both are extensively different. And that's not saying pick the school explicitly on academics, but what's your take on utilizing your athletic abilities to get you into an institution and having like a 50-year mindset, not just a 4-year mindset?
I say absolutely do it. So now the catch is the Ivy Leagues, because I don't know how that works. I wasn't recruited by any Ivy League schools, but I know those are great academic schools. But I don't know if they have. I don't think they have athletic scholarship. So no, yeah.
I
So,
don't think so, no.
but I mean, there's so many other great schools that have great academics. So I think looking at that aspect, like you have to, like if you can go to a school that has astounding academics, it's like you'd be foolish not to at least look and consider going there, right? Because that's what Carlson said when he was recruiting me. He was like, "Yeah, you're going to come here and run for 4 years, but when you're older in life," and he said, like, when you go meet your girlfriend's dad, you tell him you've got a Notre Dame degree, he's going to smile and shake your hand. And I was like, it made me laugh, right? I was like, I mean, it's true, right? Like, maximize the degree that you can get at the institution you can get with your athletics. It's an absolute, I mean, it's great. Like the fact that that was something that I was able to do. Yeah, I wouldn't tell anyone anything else. So
You've talked about the impact that Coach Carlson and Coach Newell have had on you personally. Would we ever see Coach Solomon enter the ring? Does coaching intrigue you at all? Are you like, I'll see how far I can go in the sport as a runner, and then I'll hang up the spikes and just be done with the sport?
yeah, so I think back in high school, I had a great coach in high school, John Mickes. I think he really understood like not frying us at all in high school and really almost under preparing us for college, not in a bad way, but like, hey, if you excel in this training, then once you get to college, you can really make massive jumps. But I also had a math teacher who I thought was very like I guess inspiring. Like I really liked going to his class and I liked the work that he did. Um, and I was like, oh, maybe one day I want to coach high school and teach high school calculus or something. Um, so I think maybe one day later in life that's something I would like to do. Probably go work as an engineer for a while, and then if I get tired of that, go try to learn how to teach high school and coach high school. But I think when I'm done running, I want to take a break from it for a while, whenever that may be, and then maybe get back into coaching later in life.
Going back in time, Carter, can you take me through how you got your start in the sport of running and what your first impressions of it were?
Yeah, so I think sixth grade was the first year that I ran cross country. It was the only sport that we could do at our middle school for sixth grade. and I was okay at it. I wasn't the fastest kid at the school by any means. Um, and I had dreams of playing in the NBA, and like any middle school does. And seventh grade, I didn't run track or cross country, and I was playing travel basketball. Trying to maybe there's get recruited to play basketball, and then seventh or eighth grade, we were playing a team from Flint, Michigan, and their point guard dunked the basketball like in seventh or eighth grade, and I was sitting on the bench. I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to be playing college basketball. These kids are they're on another level, right? So I put my eyes towards cross country and ran in eighth grade, in high school, and throughout. And just it really clicked in high school for me. Freshman year was pretty successful in cross country, and just kept getting faster after that year.
Going back in time to those first few years as a runner, do you see any of the do you see any attributes of that young Carter where you could look back and if you were his coach, be like, he was gonna make it. He was gonna make it.
I think it all stems from basketball still for me. I think I was not a natural born basketball player. Um, but my dad instilled, he said, if you want to make the middle school team and the high school team, you got to really put the hours in and put the effort in. He never forced me by any means. I was like, all right, I want to do that. That's what I've decided I want to do. And we just spend hours in the driveway practicing. And it worked out, made the middle school and high school teams. But I think the deeper lesson there was the discipline and hard work. Like the fact that I was able to do that at a young age and learn and see the results of it. Like I still think about that stuff. Like, especially when training gets really hard and, you don't always want to run every day, but that if you just keep putting in that work and staying consistent and disciplined, that it's going to pay off. Like I've seen those results before. So that's kind of what I rely on.
What would you say to a middle schooler or a high school listening who sees the things you've accomplished and they want to get to where you are, but they don't quite know how to get there? Maybe they don't see the path. What would you say to them?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think because I never had a passion for running probably until junior year of high school. Um, I think just trying as many sports as you can at a younger age. And if there's a sport you really enjoy doing, or a sport that you're naturally very good at, maybe lean in on that sport for 3 to 6 months and see how good you can get at that sport. Because you can get really good at something in 3 to 6 months if you really put the time in. And that's not a super long period of time where you, like, if you're not successful or you don't like it as much as you thought, there's still time to turn it around. But that's a tough question just because you don't know. Year to year, so much can change, right? You could grow 6 inches and suddenly be the starting center for your high school team in basketball, right? So just getting involved in as much as you can is what I would say.
We've talked about basketball a decent amount in the recent part of this conversation. Who's the best player on the Notre Dame men's basketball team? Or not men's basketball team, cross country team, when you guys play basketball, if you ever do.
Oh yeah, we play. And I thought for sure I was going to be like the best because I played JV ball in high school. But no, like Tom Seitzer, he's a fifth year now. He played varsity, I think. He's a good player, but CJ is probably the best. I hate saying it, but like we were
Really?
playing five. Yeah, we were playing
What's
five
it with
on
the
five.
Butler kids? Because I played Drew at Foot Locker, and Drew was putting down some threes, and he won the race in the morning. I thought he'd be more tired. I mean, he was
I
really
don't know,
good.
but we were playing 5 on 5, and CJ had a breakaway, and I'm running like jogging up the court, and he goes up and dunks. I was just like it caught me so off guard. I was like, and then he just kind of ran back to play defense, and I was just like, is no one else just going to acknowledge that he just went up and dunked? But he's probably the best on our team. But we've got some ballers. It's fun playing basketball with the guys.
I just had the idea. I think after Eugene, like after nationals, although a lot of people, after like their conference meet, take a break and then start cross training. But I would love to see 5v5s of the top cross country teams across the country, a little March Madness and June action. I would pay money to see that.
I think we
I
would
feel
win.
really.
Like we've got some
This
ballers.
is a hot take.
Like we've got. I think we would win. I think we've got some ballers. Like we would have a bench. Like we would have guys on the bench ready to get out there and start shooting. Now that would be a lot of fun.
Interesting. That would be so much fun. That'd be so much fun. I do think I gotta ask you, like running, obviously, competitive, but most people who get into the sport are nice people, and running's also the sport that you can't do too much crap talking to each other. Like in a race, like I feel like it probably happens on social media, if at all. How heated do you think guys would get at these games? Because I imagine, like specifically ACC rivals, like you guys probably talk crap about each other at practice. I feel like it would come out in a basketball game.
Yeah, I bet it would because it's not running related. I think things would get chippy. Um, I don't know if it wouldn't turn into fisticuffs, but I think it would be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun.
Heated, but not Draymond Green level.
Exactly. Yeah.
How much basketball do you follow? Because I've really never been into the NBA. Growing up, I remember maybe 2018 when the Cavs played the Warriors. That was like the only finals I watched, just because, growing up, I was a Warriors fan. I was cheering for the Warriors over the Cavs hilariously, even though I
Yeah.
was living in Ohio. But that was the only finals I watched. Haven't really followed NBA. And then Cameron Todd refuses. Like we were at Foot Locker, and the guy literally left dinner early a few nights to watch the in-season tournament because he's the biggest Pacers fan. So he's kind of got me into the tournament a little bit. How much of an NBA fan are you, if at all?
Well,
Because Cameron Todd's
so,
going to talk your ear off about it next year, is what I'm saying.
oh gosh, so I'm from Michigan, so I'm a Pistons fan, and
Okay.
they were on track to have the worst record in NBA history this year. So I didn't even bother watching them play. And with the trades and stuff now, like I was watching playoffs last night. I didn't know Kyrie Irving was on. I don't even the Timberwolves. Like I can't keep track of
He
them.
is on the Dallas
He's
Mavericks,
on the
if that's a
Mavericks. That's
team.
right. Yeah. See, I don't know. I can't follow. There's too many trades. There's not enough team loyalty. Um, so I don't really follow the NBA. I'll watch the finals just because it's good, high quality basketball. They finally play defense, right? But yeah, I don't pay too much attention to it.
What's been going on with Notre Dame basketball? So I've always followed March Madness, been a big NCAA college basketball fan all my life. And when I was younger, like middle school, Notre Dame was that team. They were always amazing. I feel like, would consistently fumble the bag in the tournament, though. And then recent years, they don't even make the tourney. What's going on? You're at the university. What's the talk around town?
I,
What has to change?
well, we just got a new coach, right? I he
Okay.
This was maybe his second year, maybe his first year. Um, he followed me up. He followed me back on Instagram, so I'm already
Ooh,
a big
let's
fan of
go.
this guy. Yeah.
Recruiting?
Um,
Maybe switch of sports? You and
I
CJ?
would that would be pretty sweet. Me and CJ riding the pine on the basketball team, but um, I don't know what's got to change. I mean, it starts with recruiting, right? But I don't know. I don't know what kind of basketball recruiting, or I don't know. I have no idea how that looks. I think it's a lot different than cross country recruiting. But our football team seems to have no problem getting 5-star recruits. It might just take one or two guys, to really click coming out of high school. So I hope next year they're better. But I don't know what it's going to take for them. I didn't really follow the season too closely. But we did win an ACC game in basketball. That was forward motion.
You'll take
Forward
it.
motion.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah.
Okay, super hot take question. Might annoy some people, but the people that would get annoyed probably don't listen to the podcast. You mentioned you feel very confident in starting five on the Notre Dame cross country basketball team. You take that five, you take that team, you take your team, put them up against Notre Dame women's basketball team, the actual basketball team. Who's winning?
We debate this frequently,
Really? Okay.
and it. I still I don't even know what to say. I think I think we would lose.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What do other guys say? What's the split? What's the who thinks more?
Well, some guys are very passionate about this topic, namely Ryan Schumacher. He is very adamant that if there were 5 of him, that he would beat the women's basketball team. Um, and so he's very much for that we would beat them. But I think they're too skilled. I think, and we're not basketball players, right? We're former basketball players. I think they would just outshoot us and move the ball better than we could. So I think that's why they would have the advantage over us. Now in full court, that might be a different story because running up and down the court, that might be to our advantage, right? So I think that would be fun in the summertime. Get the guys back and scrimmage the girls' team.
Who? Oh, that could happen.
That
Would
could
Coach
happen.
Neal? Who would be the coach? Would a player be a coach? Would Coach Neal come down from his office?
I'd rather take our assistant coach, Coach Schatz.
Okay,
Yep, yep. I feel
more
like he would.
basketball knowledge.
What's that?
I said more basketball knowledge.
I think he would more than Neil. That's for sure.
Okay. Hating on Neil, that's okay. He's good at running. He can stick to running. Okay,
Yeah,
Carter, on a more serious note, for those who have listened to our conversation today, what would be the final takeaway message you want to leave with our audience today?
I think actually this ties back to the question you asked earlier. Like the biggest thing I learned about myself at Notre Dame. Um, I think it's very easy to get caught up in the future and the things that are out of your control that are ahead of your timeline. Um, and I've been a product of that. I think after last year was a great breakout year, and I got ahead of myself. I was like, all right, I want to take these next steps, step here, 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 and then I'm going to be a pro, and then yada yada yada, way over my head. And then I got hurt, and it set me back a couple of months. And I think I really realized I was getting way ahead of myself. I was caring way too much about things that were out of my control. Like I still have 2 years. Well, I've got 1 year now, but at the time I was like, I've got a year and a half left at Notre Dame. I've got this great opportunity, great coach, great teammates. Why am I thinking so much about a year and a half from now? Like really lean in on what we have going on now, the coaching that we have, the facilities, the training, right? And make the most of that. Do what you can every day so you can be better tomorrow and then in the future. I think that applies to life as well. You know, it is important, I guess, to start looking at jobs early, but it's easy to get caught up in, oh, if I get this job and oh, maybe if I run this time, it's just so easy to start spiraling out of your head. That's one of the bigger things that I've learned is just to not do that and not get so caught up in the things that are out of your control like that. So that's my takeaway. That's if anyone can resonate with that. They're spending so much time worrying about the future and not the present. That's what I would like. That's the message I think I would share.
I love it. I love it. Good stuff. I'm thinking here. I'm like, I think this. I mean, I would have to graph this. Maybe a listener can do the work and DM me this. Notre Dame might take the cake for most people on a podcast. Although if I include alums, I think Stanford would. But Notre Dame's probably top 2. And I was thinking, man, it's been awesome to have all these Notre Dame people on, both coaches, athletes. And I do live so close to South Bend that I've thought about, man, it'd be really cool to come out to a track meet or come hang with people at practice, whatever it is. Just knowing Coach Sparks and Coach Neal at this point. A question for you though, on air. I'm curious
Yep,
and then I was like, it'd be cool to do like an in-person podcast. The energy's amazing.
that would be
Both
sweet.
genders, men's team, women's team, coaches included. If you could have 5 people on the team, you can include yourself, 5 people who you think would make the most entertaining podcast with me, live podcast in person. Who would you pick?
Oh boy, that's a great question. Um, I you could probably get a handful of girls that all mesh and would get like be a super fun podcast with Sparks. But I think if you got like CJ, Dalen Ackley, Coach Neal, um, I might say myself just because I want to be there. I want to experience that. Like that would be so comical. And then the fifth person, oh gosh, oh, Gabe Hendricks. He's a
Okay.
sophomore on the team. If you got those 5 guys on a podcast, that would be very entertaining.
I'll have to make it happen one of these days. Maybe this fall, I'll drive up, make it
Yep,
happen.
that
Carter,
would be
one
awesome.
final question for you. The question I ask every single guest on every single episode. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
Oh, I'm not much of a cook. I kind of get ragged on for my cooking in this house, and I live with guys on the team. But I would make him burgers. Because I like to toast the bun, put a little mayonnaise on there, pickles, cook cook the ground beef on a cast iron, and then oven French fries. That's what I would make.
Ooh.
That's my go-to. Yeah,
Who said that? Who said this man can't cook? That sounds good to me, man.
yeah. I've got a cast iron. I have to be able to cook, right? So
Exactly. Exactly. Carter, really appreciate the conversation. Best of luck in the months and final year to come at Notre Dame, and hopefully much more success beyond that. Appreciate the conversation. Keep crushing it.
thank you.